Hello mortals, I am the BookTube Goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. And I wanted to do a tag, and I started looking up recent tags, and I found one that's a little interesting. It was created by Anna and Michelle, the two mythical unicorns. So please go ahead and check out their channel. They are a duo that play off each other and they're really fun. Anyway, they created the 2020 book tag, A Year of Disasters. They have a prompt for every month in 2020, and since 2020 is so fresh in our minds, I thought I'd go ahead and do it. So let's hope this is a great historical archive.
So first up we have January. And in January we had the Australian fires. Right. For that we have name a book and a character where the character wants to burn the world down.
Well, I have Lord of the Rings on the mind for some reason, so I'm just going to pick Sauron. Now, did he want to burn down the world or just control the world? Or is there a difference? I don't know. I'm sticking with the huge eye himself, Sauron.
Next up we have February. And COVID became a thing we all knew about. Like, it wasn't just something far away on the news, it was in our lives. Yeah. So for that one we have name a book where some sort of a disease is important to the plot.
Well, I'm not thinking very hard about it. Let's just say The Stand by Stephen King. It is about an apocalypse in the near future started by a plague, and yes, that hits a little close to home.
March. Quarantine. Yeah, so for that one we have name a book where someone is confined in some way.
Well, wanting to be a little different, I thought I would pick The Old Man in the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. It is about an old man on a boat in the sea, and he is confined to his little boat, and he's a fisherman and he catches a fish bigger than his boat. Anyway, the entire book is confined to this little frickin' boat.
And next up we have April, and that is when Trump told people to inject bleach or consume bleach because that kills bacteria. Yeah. So for this one we have name a book where there is a leader that is batshit crazy.
Now, to be fair, I don't think Trump actually meant people to inject Clorox, right? He didn't really think that, right? Anyway, I picked The Jackal of Nar by John Marco, which is the first book in a trilogy. Now, I haven't thought about John Marco in a while, but he is a very good fantasy writer. I think his genre is military fantasy, so if you're into the Powder Mage series, you'll probably really love this. But anyway, one of the concepts for the story is that there is this drug that extends life for like ever. So you can live hundreds and hundreds of years. But it is in very, very short supply, so only a handful of people can obtain it. And of course, it is this emperor or king, I think he's an emperor, and his close friends, the general, the admiral, the people, his military advisors that basically he surrounds himself with. Well, there is a little side effect to this anti-aging drug. Not only does it turn your eyes blue, hello Dune, but it also makes you insane. So yes, our story's setting is within an empire where all the leaders are not only immortal, but they are batshit crazy.
And then we have May, and George Floyd was murdered, and all the Black Lives Matter protests started. For this one we have a book where name a book where there's racism.
I'm going to say Queen of the Conquered by Case and Callender. Now, it is a fantasy based upon the Caribbean islands when the Dutch were slave owners on these islands. And the twist here is that one of the slave owners happens to be black, a woman named Sigourney, who is not a very likable person. As you can imagine, she is in fact an anti-hero. It's a very good book. Strongly recommend it. Queen of the Conquered, Case and Callender.
Next up, we have June. And in June, Hong Kong national security law was passed. Yeah, so for that we have name a book with an oppressive society.
Let's just go with 1984 by George Orwell. It is the archetype of oppressive, totalitarian future societies, very dystopian. There's no other book like it, and every dystopian novel that you've probably read is influenced by 1984.
And we have July. And there were landslides in many parts of Asia. Name a book where the main character loses its footing because the world or the society is not what it seems.
Well, how about Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro? It is a near-future dystopian, I guess, where the main character is a woman who has been brought up isolated from the rest of society with a group of other young people, and they eventually grow up and they continue to be isolated, and the world is not quite what it seems. And this award-winning novel is very intense. It's very introspective. It is not an action novel. A lot of the plot movement is internal rather than external, but boy, is it a good book.
And then we have August. And there were a lot of weddings cancelled during the summer and August, including mine.
Because of COVID.
Yeah, fingers crossed for next year. Okay? And then there was an explosion in Beirut, in the harbor, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and that's not good. So for this one we have name a book where a relationship blew up and it broke your heart.
Now, I said this in another tag video for another prompt, but I'm just going to say it again because this is a book that deserves to be read. The Silver Medal Lover by Tanith Lee. It was written in the 80s. It is in a society which is somewhat prescient because there's all these diseases that prevents people from touching each other. So, of course, some members of society find companionship with robots. Now, the main character is a 16-year-old girl. If you want to call this a young adult novel, feel free. It wasn't written as a young adult novel, but knock yourself out. Now, it's a short book. I think it might be considered a novella. So if you're looking for a fast read that's kind of dark, kind of moody, kind of melodramatic, if you're in that type of mood and you like romance novels and science fiction, please check out Silver Medal Lover.
So then we have September, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. So for this one we have name a book with a strong independent female character.
Well, you know, I'm going to say Auntie Mame by Patrick Dennis. Yes, you may have seen the movie, but if you haven't read the book, it is funny. It is dated, so little warning there, but it is such a fun, wonderful read. If you don't know the story of Auntie Mame, you must be living under a rock. But briefly, this young boy is orphaned and his only living relative is an eccentric aunt who decides to raise him. And she has a very bohemian lifestyle in the 20s and 30s. And it's a wonderful book. But as I did say, it is dated, so keep that in mind when you read it. But if you can look past that, I think you'll love it. It's funny.
Darling, I'm so glad to see Ed and I called you yesterday. Where are you?
Hello, May.
Hello, darling. I'll be with you in just a minute. Vladimir. I'm your Auntie May.
have October, the second wave. So name a book that takes place close to the ocean.
Well, speaking of older books, The Snow Queen by Joan Vinge, who is the ex-wife, by the way, of Werner Vinge, another science fiction author who wrote Fire Upon the Deep. But we're talking about The Snow Queen, which takes place on a water world. And it is loosely based on the Snow Queen fairy tale. There is this ruler who is the Snow Queen who lives like a really long time. But the cycle of this planet, this water world, once it completes its cycle, I forget how many years, it might be like hundreds of years. Once it completes the cycle, the Snow Queen is sacrificed, and she tries to get around it by cloning herself and hiding clones around the planet. It's been a while since I've read it, but I love the water world. I love the story. I believe it won some awards, and Joan Vinge needs to be discovered again. So check her out.
Then we have November, and November was the warmest November ever measured, which is not good for the climate.
No.
For that we have name a book with a heartwarming story.
Well, I'm just going to say The Extraordinaries by T.J. Klune. It is a young adult gay superhero fantasy. The main character has severe ADHD, but what's great about this is the ADHD is not treated as a disability. It's just something that makes the kid different. And he's in love with this superhero, but he has a best friend who's probably in love with him, and there's other superheroes around. Anyway, it's a really fun, it's not terribly deep, but it is a fun, humorous story that I think you might like.
And then the last one, December. There is still a fucking pandemic that never ends. Okay? So name a book series that went on longer than it should have.
Of course, I want to say Wheel of Time, but it needed to end. It needed to get where it got. So, I mean, it shouldn't have, in my opinion, it shouldn't have been that long. Anyway, instead, I'm going to say the Jerrig series by Stephen Brust. Now, if you haven't heard of this series, it's been around forever, and I think he's still writing books in the series, and I haven't kept up all the way through. I dropped off like I think probably most people have because the series just got so long. Now, to be fair, I don't think this is a continuous story arc. There may be an element of a continuous story through the series. Now, this is set in a traditional fantasy setting, but the main character, Vlad Teltos, is a bit of a criminal rogue thief type. So if you're into like The Lies of Locke Lamora or Six of Crows and like those heist, thieving, dark stories, you'll probably fall in love with Vlad Teltos. Now, Vlad has a familiar, which is this little flying dragon named Loyosh. But anyway, they are relatively short books. The first book is Jerrig. Actually, I'm not sure what the series itself is called, but you don't really have to, after the first book, follow them in sequence, or maybe you do. But I don't know, check them out. There are lots of books in this series for you to explore. So please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell. And I think I have to tag some people. Yeah, let's tag some people. How about that? I'm going to tag Eric of Break Even Books. And I'm going to tag Jalen of The Bar in the Bookcase, a booktuber I just discovered because he discovered me, so I went and saw him. Great booktuber. And how about Steph from Coffee Over Apples? Another booktuber that you should check out. So until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.